Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's virtual plant clinic. My name is Bill Lester. I'm with University of Florida IFAS Extension Service in Hernando County, Florida. And with me today is Master Gardener Bernie. I know Bernie's on quite a bit when Lily has to take over for me, but Bernie, this is the first time it's just been the two of us on here, isn't it?
Well, it is, and hopefully we might be able to do this more often.
We try to be here every week, although let me go ahead and mention for the first time, next Thursday, we will not be here because Lily's busy and I'm going to be out of town for the day. I have to go all the way over to Flagler County. Not looking forward to it, but I have to for work. And unless I figure out how to do this and answer questions by phone while I'm driving, which isn't really safe or a good idea, then we're going to have to skip next week, but we'll be back the week after that. So, good morning. There's a few people on here watching us. Good morning, Lestine. How are you up there in beautiful Gainesville? Do we have anybody from South Florida on today? Because, Bernie, I saw just very quickly on the weather this morning, yesterday, I guess, in Fort Lauderdale and that area, they had 20 inches of rain in 24 hours. I think that's correct. Like I said, I was just kind of walking past the TV and caught it, thinking, it's a lot of rain.
That is a tremendous amount of rain.
And we got none here.
When you think about how deep that would be if this room had 20 inches of water in it, how difficult it would be to slush around, and basically that's what happened to the lawn. So all those plants that uh, were really in need of water are now in need of some oxygen.
Yeah. And that's when people should be thankful for living in Spring Hill with the terribly sandy soil, because I know when I get a lot of rain in Spring Hill, the water piles up in my front yard, but as soon as it stops raining, maybe 15 minutes later, boom, it's all gone. So good drainage is good when you get a lot of rain. Not so good when it's dry and sunny. Like I'm looking out the window right now and I don't see a cloud in the sky. It's a beautiful sunny day out there, and I can hear my vegetable garden drying out right now. So,
All the St. Augustine grass is gasping, and all the head grass is brown in our county. So
mine is.
if you've got green grass, you either cheated or you're in a different county.
And you can see in our background picture here, if you look the part down at the bottom, gentleman's lawn who sent an email with a couple questions, his looks dead, partly because it's been very, very dry, but also because he had a St. Augustine lawn, and it looked to me like he was cutting it about a half an inch religiously, which is way, 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 way too short for St. Augustine, and killed it. But if you look up top, his neighbor, there we go, has beautiful green grass. And apparently they achieve that by watering twice a day. Can't do that here in Hernando County. Don't know about other counties, but you can't do it here. And they do enforce that. And when, probably not if, but when they get caught by code enforcement, they will get told that and they'll probably get a citation also. So even though Lily isn't here with us today, let me share what she keeps telling people. You need to follow the irrigation restrictions here in Hernando County, or you may potentially get a citation and a fine.
Those are good fines. I mean, that's $100 for the first one and $500 for the second one. And I think it's court appearance if they get you the third time.
Yeah, it is. It's not like $20 a pop, and people figure, I'll just pay the ticket. I'll keep watering and I'll just pay it. You know, $100 tends to upset people. But I did see somebody on Facebook that actually posted that they had gotten a $500 fine, which means that you got caught a second time.
Yeah.
Hey, all we can do is just share with you what's going on. and you guys make the decision.
Yeah, if you drive through the addition that's across the street from us, uh, you'll find that uh, 5 out of 6 houses have brown lawns, and then miraculously there's one gorgeous lawn, and then you go 4 or 5 houses and there's one gorgeous lawn, and I don't know what they think they're doing, but they're not hiding what's happening. So,
Uh-huh.
and with the new guys that they've got for code enforcement, uh, I'm sure they're smart enough to realize that too. So if if you water at 3 o'clock in the morning when these guys are out running around trying to keep it a secret, you're going to get caught now. So they hadn't done that before. It used to be it was not a problem, but there's actual enforcement for the first time in the county on this.
Yeah, I know somebody complained that they've watered their lawn for years, whenever and as often as they wanted to, and they were upset that they got a fine. It's like, well, we've always had these restrictions. They've been in effect for many years, so it's nothing new. Lee lives down in Broward County, and I guess that she got some of that rain down there. Good morning from soggy South Florida. 20 inches is probably a little bit too much. Nothing for weeks on end is a little bit too little. If I could just get, I don't know, a half an inch of rain, I'd be good at my house.
The thing that happens is you go for months without any appreciable rain, and the soil becomes hydrophobic, and it doesn't moisten very well.
Yeah.
So you get an inch rain after a long dry spell, and it really doesn't do a lot of good. What you need is a couple of inches over a long period of time, 18 to 24 hours, so that it's not running off, but it's sitting there and it slowly builds it back up. The same thing if you've got flowers with peat moss. Once it dries out, it's very, very difficult to re-wet it. And the same thing with the soil. Once the sandy soil gets dry, it's very difficult to wet it. Uh, if you go out and water the lawn and actually do a good job of watering the lawn, you can then take a shovel and go down 6 inches, and you find that it's dry from about a half inch down. So you're not really getting the benefit when you dump a ton of water in a very short period of time.
Yeah, a lot of times it takes some frequent, steady waterings and just some time for it to actually soak in. One of those where it rains all day or rains all night, kind of slow drizzle, is going to be the best for actually watering everything in. Bill says his lawn is St. Augustine, doing pretty well on once a week watering. No cheating. Struggling areas are near the concrete. So why is that? Why does your grass struggle next to concrete driveways?
Well, concrete dries everything so much faster. It gets hot, and you have little hot heat islands in the middle of the lawn. But if your lawn survives all right on once a week watering, that's an indication you're doing a really good job health wise taking care of your lawn. You're not cutting it too short, and you're not letting any of the disease problems get out of hand. So, it can be done, and it requires a little care, a little effort on people's parts, but cheating is not really necessary. So I really appreciate somebody that does that. It shows that they've actually done a nice job. What I preach on a day in, day out basis is being done, and I enjoy people that do that. I don't see it often enough that
Yeah,
I have to worry about it though.
Yeah, I mean, it actually does work. I have followed lawns, very, very few of them, but at least a few, where they did actually find a service that cut it at 4 inches high, long term, and it looked great. Very, very few weeds. If they had take all, they weren't having a lot of problems or really big outbreaks with it. And their lawn looked noticeably better and different from all the other lawns in their neighborhood. So it works. Bernie, here's a question for you about Bassem has a mallow malva, and it has a rust fungus. How does he treat the leaves?
Well, the nice thing about a fungicide is that there's one that works pretty good on just about everything, and that's chlorthalidone, which is the product in Daconel, and Daconel seems to be sold by everybody that's in the lawn care business. So uh, if you have a fungal problem with any of the landscape plants, Daconel, very safe product, a very effective product, and it's pretty much my first recommendation on all those things.
Just read the directions, follow the directions, double check to make sure that the plant that you're treating is not on the no-no list on the label. I run across that sometimes. Ran across that with an insecticide. Gentleman had a hedge and sprayed it with Sevin, I think. And there are some plants, if you read the label, it says don't use Sevin on because it can damage the plants. And what he had for hedge was one of the plants on the label. So even though he bought the product and had the label in his hand, I'm talking to him on the phone and looking up the label online. And it's like, oh, you shouldn't have sprayed it on your hedge. And he could have known that had he just read the label and read the directions.
There are a lot of the lawn products that are that way, that say safe for St. Augustine. And then on the very small print at the bottom, it says except for Floratam. Well, in our county, that's the 95% of the St. Augustine is Floratam. So you have to be extremely careful. And you're right, that applies to so many products. And it's the same way if you're buying a weed killer. If the weed killer isn't labeled for the weed you're trying to kill, why waste the money? If you have skunk vine, you're not going to get rid of it with atrazine or one of those kind of things. It's going to take something special. And the only product that's really effective isn't registered for homeowners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very important that you got to start with identifying what your problem is, diagnose it before you start treating or spraying or purchasing anything to try to solve whatever problem you have. Because I know both of us talk to a lot of people who have some kind of really vague problem with a plant, and then they tell you all the things that they've done already. It's like, well, why did you do all that without knowing what was wrong to begin with? Just doesn't make sense some days.
When you get 20 inches of rain, doesn't that present problems in that you end up with puddles that are not going to dry? You end up with very uneven watering in the area, and long-term water standing where it's going to be very detrimental, and the flooding is going to wash a lot of things away. So if you've got any terrain where it's hilly at all, it's going to be an erosion problem. I know in the western part or eastern part of our county, 11 inches of rain would cause a lot of really terrible ditching and things to occur. So
it can.
what
and it all depends on your drainage, depends on what type of soil you have. A lot of South Florida, and I'm not really sure about around Broward County or around Fort Lauderdale, but south of there, Miami and Homestead has marl, which is basically limestone rock and a weird clay, a weird sticky clay, and has pretty poor drainage. All the growers, especially fruit tree growers down in South Florida, plant their trees in raised mounds because when it rains an awful lot, the water will kind of fill up and get deep, and they have to try to keep the roots out of the standing water. Otherwise, the avocados and fruit trees are going to die pretty quickly. So yeah, for anybody who lives near a waterway, a creek, has poor drainage. I know here in Hernando County, in areas around Brooksville, you have the clay underlayer like at the Master Gardener Nursery. And It is a swamp for a bit until things dry up. Not my house. It drains pretty quickly, and after a sunny day or two, it's bone dry again.
Yeah, we're hilly and uh, very high and very sandy. So a 4 inch rain, 5 minutes later, everything's dry as far as to touch. So
Yeah. So Basem's asking about the plant with the fungicide. Is this safe for edible leaves? You have to double check the label on that. Daconil is used for edible crops, but it's not. I know it's used a lot on peanuts in commercial peanut production, and you really have to double check the label. If you're looking for something else that is generally labeled for edibles, look at liquid copper fungicide, and that's labeled for a lot of different things.
seemed like the Daconel has a 1 day restriction, so it's not much. I did look that up at one point.
Yeah, yeah. Keep in mind a lot of pesticides and fungicides and other things, they'll have a time limit where you're supposed to stay out of the field or stay away from where you sprayed it. And for edibles, it has a time period between when you spray and when it's safe to pick that stuff. So don't go to the store and grab a bottle of 7 or something like that, spray it on your tomatoes, and then pick your tomatoes later that day and take them inside and eat them. All that information is all clearly laid out on the label.
Unfortunately, we have put so much insecticide and pesticide on the ground here, and it's all ending up in the water system. So uh, it's getting to be that it doesn't make any difference whether it's on the plant or not. We're
Yeah,
drinking it, and it's scary.
yeah,
Can you imagine how many tons of chemical all these green companies are dumping on the lawns in a year's period of time, and where all that chemical is gone?
yeah. It all ends up somewhere. And I know all chemicals are different. Some of them break down very quickly, other ones very, very slowly. So they're around for a very long time period. When you throw in what the commercial companies lay down, along with what's freely available to homeowners, and if you ever walk into a big box store, there's huge displays for certain broad spectrum products that I pretty much never recommend. I might have to recommend once or twice a year for a very specific issue. And these are things that are encouraging people, buy a bag of the powder and the dust and the granules that you dissolve in water and the liquid and spray it all over, cure all your problems. It's a combination between frightening and discouraging, I guess.
Yeah, if we could get people using the simple things, spinosad, BT for the caterpillars, there are products out there that are so much safer. Horticultural soap is probably as effective in most cases as anything you could use, and yet it's something that nobody seems to be able to find. I recommend that probably 3-4 times a day to
Hmm.
people for insect problems. And well, my neighbor uses Dove soap. I'm going to use Dove soap. Well, that's really a detergent. That's not a soap.
Yeah.
But they seem to not be able to go to the store and buy horticultural soap because that's a pretty cheap product. And when you've got
Hmm.
8 foot of shelving all the way to the ceiling filled with $20 chemicals, a $3 horticultural soap bottle really doesn't make much sense to the retailer. But it sure does to the people that have got to eat the food that you're going to spray. And it's very effective in a garden. If
Hmm.
you walk by and look at your garden every day, and if you see a bug, you can spray them with the soap, and it stops the problems ahead of time. It's simple and it's effective.
It's what I recommend most often also for most common problems. Any small soft-bodied insect, it's going to be the most effective way to go. Very safe to use if you use it, according to the directions. You don't have to get in a hazmat suit from head to toe to go out there and spray it. Can generally be used pretty frequently. So if you need to follow up to get something under control, you can. I know neem oil is very, very popular with a lot of people. I think because they just think that it's organic, which it is, and all natural, which it can be, depends on the formulation. Everybody loves it. And I've always found really inconsistent results from it. Sometimes it works, other times it doesn't.
It's very temperature dependent product,
Hmm.
and you really shouldn't use it in the summer when the temperatures are high. That 85-degree cutoff pretty well eliminates neem for most things in the summer. I did find that I could use my horticultural soap bottle against grasshoppers. I just beat them with the bottle.
Mechanical control.
It works.
Yes, it does. And boy, people panic over those grasshoppers. They go nuts. And they hatched in my backyard, in my vegetable garden earlier this spring. They're all growing just fine. They've shed their skins a few times. They're bigger. And you know how much damage they've done in my vegetable garden? None. They have not eaten anything. And I check, I look, and they're there. They're hanging out. They're not eating or damaging anything. But people just love to absolutely flip out over them. And then, of course, when they get full size, a full, what, about 2-3 inches or so long? Later on in the summer, that's when people really flip out.
The orange dogs in my citrus area, if they were on a little bitty tree where I really didn't want them to eat a few leaves, I would pick them off and take them over and stick them on a big tree because I figured this thing's going to eat 4 or 5 leaves,
Yeah.
maybe 6 leaves, and I'm going to end up with a big, beautiful butterfly. And they really didn't hurt anything. It wasn't a problem. The density of them never got high. Maybe 4 in the whole grove in a season,
Hmm.
but it just seems to be the everybody wants to run out and kill everything they can, and that really isn't necessary.
They want to sanitize the great outdoors, and you can't
Yeah.
do that. And Bassem has a question here about how to propagate his lemongrass by root division and what the best time to do so. I can answer this one right now. So I have lemongrass I started from seed a couple years ago, and I have 3 big clumps, and you could take a good sized clump because lemongrass grows really, really well during the summer, going to freeze and die back in the winter. You could trim it back to the ground or not, either way. But you can dig up the whole clump and take a sharp shovel. So take your shovel if you have a bench grinder or file, try to sharpen it up and cut it up into chunks. And each chunk you can plant separately. And over the next year or two, it's going to grow and spread and do just great also. Have you ever grown lemongrass? You have any experience with it?
No, the problem I've got is that in the past 7 years, I have had no knees. So if I get down, I can't get back up. And my neighbor came up with a little thing that gives you a handhold to get up with, and it's the neatest thing. She wears roofers knee pads, which are
Yeah.
very heavy knee pads, and then she has this little frame with a couple of handles, and it works great. I could actually go back to gardening again. Surprised me.
That's great. Yeah, I'm a little slower getting back up at this point, but I'm still able to kind of get down and get back up. Teresa put in the chat a link to University of Florida information on growing lemongrass. Stuff grows like a weed. It's one of those, it grows great all summer long. Doesn't like the cold. I've never harvested it before and tried eating it because I've never noticed that any of the stems have gotten really thick enough to make it worthwhile. I'm going to have to do that this year. Lee, down in Broward County, grows lemongrass, very easy, low maintenance, and it makes for a nice decorative grass. So a substitute for muley grass, Fakahatchee grass, the African iris. So if you're in an HOA and you use it as your decorative grass out in the front flower bed, it looks good and you can eat it too. And your neighbors won't even know that you're eating it if you go out there and don't make a big show of picking it. So
chop it up in about 1-inch pieces and put it in your chicken soup.
Essential in stir fry, Thai cuisine. And there's tons of information out there. Here's a blog post from Nassau County Extension about lemongrass. You could buy it at the store, very, very expensive, or just grow your own. And yeah, I know that you can make a tea with ginger. I've seen where you take the leaves and you tie them up into like a little bundle and steep it to make lemongrass tea. So a lot of uses for it, and looks attractive and very, very low maintenance. And I appreciate the heck out of that. Yeah, Lestine, you eat lemongrass?
Yes,
tea, flavoring, stir fry, a lot of uses. But you can't eat that African iris that the landscaper put in your front flower bed. So get rid of it and put lemongrass in. So if anybody has any other lawn and garden related questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. And since we have Bernie here, we'll get a good answer for you. Bernie, I see right behind you, you have your little sign or graphic for your Bernology. What is that?
Well, that's about a 5-minute program we do weekly, and it covers just various things that happen. Something that sounds like a good subject to me that week, or if I have a client come in with an interesting problem, that'll show up on Bernology. So it comes from the fact that a good friend of mine would always come and ask for help on things, and the solutions were Bernology. So here's solutions to the problems you don't have, the questions you didn't ask is Bernology. And it's, like I say, about a 5-minute program weekly.
And if anybody wants to catch them, they are on our Facebook page. Here, let me go ahead and find the link for that. So if you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to follow us on Facebook also. If you're watching us on Facebook, you're already there. So just go ahead and like us and follow us and keep checking back, because pretty much every Thursday afternoon, we have Bernology on Facebook. It's not Facebook Live, it's a Facebook video, but it's going to be on there pretty much every Thursday. So be sure to follow us on Facebook. And here's one I don't know the answer to. So Cindy asks, pellitory. I keep reading that this is currently very high for allergies in my area, the Largo and Pinellas County area. I looked it up, and it's called the asthma weed or asthma plant. Does it just grow wild? I'm not sure what it looks like. Familiar with that?
I'm not familiar with that at all.
And neither am I. But I'm sure Teresa is looking it up right now. So we'll leave that up there for a moment for Teresa to try to find. We obviously do have a lot of weeds / native plants because it's all kind of an opinion about which one it is. Lots of plants could be considered both a weed and a native plant, and they flower and they give off pollen, and people have asthma, people have hay fever, they have allergies. It's probably very difficult for them right now because we've had so little rain to wash it all out of the air. Fortunately, I don't have too many problems with that, but I know a lot of people do. So Teresa asked,
I would think oak trees would be one of the worst things for people with asthma.
I've heard plants with big pollen, like where you see the pollen, like you can see the pollen from oak trees and pine trees, always make that yellow covering on your car and your windshield. If it's big enough to see the pollen, it's not that big of a problem for most people. It's the plants that get the really small pollen that you generally can't see that people have the worst reactions to.
If you're really a bulb person, you buy another refrigerator. You keep the plants in the house through the summer, let them bloom and do their thing, and then you stick them in the refrigerator out in the garage for 4 months, and then you bring them back in the house and you start them over as house plants. Very few bulb plants are going to be happy in Florida. There's no chill hours, and they really need them. And the refrigeration is about the only way to get them.
Yeah, and a big problem with a lot of those northern bulbs is, so for Lestine, you can purchase tulip bulbs online from a company and plant them generally in the fall up in Gainesville, and they're going to grow, and they're probably going to come up and bloom in the spring. If you leave them in the ground, once summer comes along, it's so warm and wet and humid and steamy that the bulbs are probably going to rot from that during the summer, so that the next year, no tulips. And same for most of the, a lot of the Easter lilies that you would buy this time of year for Easter are going to do the same thing. There's Asiatic lilies, and they grow here, but it really kind of depends on the variety. So you have to be very careful with some of those different bulbs to get ones that are going to grow well here, as opposed to the ones that grow well up north and are going to promptly die here. But tulips generally are not going to survive year after year after year down here. Crocuses won't. What are some of the other ones that grow up north?
Let's see. You can grow daylilies here.
They grow daylilies here in Florida commercially. There's a lot of nurseries where they grow them out in big fields.
Do the peace lilies?
Yeah, peace lilies do well here. Amaryllis does well here. Daffodils, they don't do well here.
No.
And Teresa found some information from University of Florida on Florida pellitory, Perioteria floridana. I like that name, Perioteria. So we have a variety of weeds here. We have so many invasive plants in Florida now, I don't even know what half of them are. I have a book, or had a book, with most of them in it, and it's about this thick. And I don't have them all memorized. So Teresa, thank you so much for looking that up. Okay, guys, we need to keep it kind of reasonably length today, so we can go for a little bit longer here. But if anybody has any burning lawn and garden questions, trees, turf grass. If you want to know why the grass down here died, go ahead and post that in the chat, and I can tell you exactly why this grass died, because this picture and email was forwarded to me, and I opened up the picture on my computer and blew it up to kind of zoom in to see about what was going on there. Because turf grass pictures, when we get them, you have to kind of zoom in and blow them up to get a good idea of what the heck is growing there, what's going on. And this guy has a couple of random stray runners of St. Augustine, other patches of weeds that are dead. They're probably last year's summer weeds, or maybe even this year's cool season weeds that have already died. They died a little bit early. But he's got almost no St. Augustine going on. And what he does have is cut about a ½ inch high. So when you go to the store and buy a lawnmower, don't set it to the lowest setting. Because, Bernie, what will you end up with if you keep doing that?
If you cut it low, it's going to die. You have take all root rot just sitting there. And, I don't know if that's in the entire state, but it's in our entire county. And if you mow St. Augustine grass short, and by short, I'm talking anything under 2.5 inches, almost guarantee that you will have take all root rot. And if you don't treat for it, I will guarantee that you'll start having spots and a loss of lawn. And, it really bothers me because it costs so much to resod.
Yeah.
And the alternative to having tall St. Augustine is to resod. And people are doing it. And we have these HOAs where they're doing the mowing for the community, and they hire somebody to go in and mow the entire community at 2 inches or 1.5 inches. I had somebody come in from one of the HOAs. It was barely 1.25 inches, and he's complaining. There's 5 of us in this little strip, and all 5 of us are having our lawns die. Well, they come in and they mow it, from one end to the other. So they mowed it all real short. And if you're going to do that, the thing that happens is you go to a golf course, and here's a golf course green, and it's 3/8 of an inch thick grass or high grass, and people think you can mow grass at any height here. It's obvious you can, because when I play golf, the greens are short. Well, what they don't see is that those things are getting watered every day. They're getting fertilized at a routine basis. They're getting a little dirt spread over them occasionally. They're doing every trick in the book every day to keep that grass that way. And you could probably get by with 1 inch St. Augustine if you had unlimited water, unlimited mechanical ability to go out and keep the thing fertilized heavy, but then keep it covered with a little more dirt, keep building it up as the thatch appeared, and you can do all those things. People cannot do that on a home basis. The same reason that you can't grow everything you want in Florida that they grew back home, you can't grow the grass here the way you did back home. And if you don't accept that, then the outcome is dead grass. The outcome is dead lilac bushes. The outcome is dead tulips. You just have to do things the way nature intends for them to be. If you plant a palm tree in New Jersey, the palm tree's going to die. If you bring grass down from New Jersey and plant it here, it's going to die. If you take our grass and take it to New Jersey, it's not going to be successful. So it's not a case of Florida is a bad place to do things. Florida is a different place to do things. We do wonderful growth here. If you like citrus, it's fantastic. Uh, you know, and you can't grow citrus up north. And there's so many things. And if you go another 50 miles south, you get into being able to grow tropicals. Well, people understand you can't grow tropicals here because they plant all the tropicals as soon as they get here and they die the first winter. And if grass died within 2 months of you doing something silly, then people wouldn't have the problems with grass that they do. They'd accept it. But grass tends to hang on for 2 or 3 years or 4 years before it gives up the ghost. So if you want to keep spending 3 to 6 thousand a year to replace the sod and keep mowing the grass at 1.5 inches or 2 inches, then that's fine. But you really shouldn't complain that it's Florida that's causing it. It's a lack of understanding, and you know, all we can do is our education part and hope that we get through to people.
Yeah, we don't make up these rules. We just share them with people. So Teresa
Mimosa
suggested,
strigosa says name a natural ground cover. Plant a few Mimosa strigosa plants, and that's an interesting thing. In a few years' time, your whole lawn will be covered with mimosa, and it's cute. I mean, if you want it to just be green and have little puffballs, don't mind the little pink puffballs. That's a great one.
and I think we have time for one final question here from Bill. Can you remind us of how long St. Augustine grass roots grow under the soil when you are letting it grow to 6 inches consistently and then mowing it to 4 inches?
The roots will go 8 to 16 inches if you do that.
But we don't see that very often because not many people do that correctly.
We see roots in the 2 to 3 inch range. If you mow it at 2 inches, the roots tend to stabilize at about 2 inches, which isn't enough to support the plant structure.
Yeah, and it's not long enough to search out water when it gets dry either. It's going to have to be constantly watered, and you can't do that here.
No.
So if you're thinking, well, I'll just water it every day, you cannot do that here. And my guess is in most counties, because we have people from all over the state and sometimes other states listening in, my guess is that's going to become more the norm as Florida continues to grow. It's not like our supply of water is going to increase, it's going to decrease over time. Lestine, you are very welcome. Hopefully it's a beautiful day up there in Gainesville. It should be beautiful up there today, a couple degrees cooler than here. I know yesterday was nice, but oh my gosh, it seemed like there was a hurricane hitting Pine Island that nobody told me about. It was just howling all day. And
yeah, we had really severe winds. I think we were in the 30-mile-an-hour gust stuff quite a bit yesterday.
I know I started hearing the wind in the trees because I have a number of palm trees and they're blowing through the dead leaves and everything. I'm thinking, what is going on out there? It's just getting even windier. So, but that's okay. No damage. Everything was fine.
You know, if you don't do the hurricane cut stuff on palms, they'll withstand anything we get here. So
Yeah. Healthy live leaves don't blow off of palms. If somebody drives into your palm, it might knock it over. That could happen. But, just manage your palms correctly. You don't have to trim all the leaves off to stay safe. And yeah, Lestine says it's in the low to mid 70s up there in Gainesville. Perfect. I guess it's as sunny as it is here. And it's no wind today. So wind's gone for whatever reason it came. So let me go ahead and start sharing. If you have any really, really difficult questions, please be sure to send them to Lily. There is her email. And if they're really difficult, she's just going to forward it to me and or Bernie anyway. So, but go ahead and let her know that you're thinking about her by sending them to her first. You can always email me questions, send pictures, lots of pictures. Don't try calling me at the office. Send me an email. It's usually the best way to get a hold of me. We have a huge number of classes, my classes, Lily's classes, ones that we've done together. They're all recorded and they're all on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and go in the little search box up at the very top and look for Hernando County Government, they have a YouTube channel. And if you go there and look under the playlists, Lily has, I think, about 105 recorded classes. Each one is about an hour. So that's a lot of information and good learning about some of the questions we had today. Ground covers, what grows well in the shade, what grows well in the summer, what to do in the winter, all kinds of different topics. So go ahead and check that out. Hernando County Government YouTube for her recorded classes and mine also. Mine are in a separate playlist. And like I said at the very beginning, we will almost definitely not be here next Thursday, but we will be back the following Thursday. And then hopefully most every Thursday after that for a while. Yeah, my Thursdays actually look pretty clear until I take a week's vacation in the not too distant future. So until I go on vacation, we'll be back here Thursdays, but not next Thursday. But Bernie should be on our Facebook page with his weekly Bernology video this afternoon and next Thursday also. So, hey, we're all coming and going. Hard to keep on top of who's doing what and who's where any given week. So, Bernie, thank you so much for joining today.
I thank you for having me on the program. This program is becoming pretty popular, and been a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. And we will see you again, not next week, but the week after that. And until then, good luck in the garden and contact us if you have any questions. So, bye, everyone.